Welcome to Fresh Catholic, a podcast for those who are converting, reverting, or simply want a fresh perspective of the Catholic faith to help them to open their hearts and minds to become closer to the love and goodness of Christ. My daily prayer is that I will be a bright light to others, to be filled with the love and light of Christ, so that when people look at me, they see Him radiating out from me for His glory. Hello and welcome. I'm Lori Balderas, and I'm so happy you're here. So this is part 2 of a 2-part series on RCIA, and my guest is Deacon Don Huntley. So if you haven't listened to the first part, I suggest you go back, have a listen to that, and then catch up with us when you're done. We'll be here waiting for you. I know that when I, was trying to decide if I wanted to become Catholic, which I really kind of knew I wanted to, it wasn't really about that. It was more like I just wanted to be sure I was going to do what it took. I don't like to do things where I make a commitment and then I just, bow out. I wanted to, really consider it very seriously, which I did. And I remember the 2 Catholics that I knew were my dad and Simon, and both weren't practicing Catholic at the time. So, I just had no knowledge of Catholicism at all. In one of my other episodes, I talk about going to tell my dad that I was, going to become Catholic, and I wasn't sure how that was going to go, and he was very supportive. He was, for a person that had turned away from the Catholic Church, he was just so encouraging about it. And I remember he made the comment to me shortly before he passed away. I remember he said, I think everybody should have to go through the RCIA program, because he said, I went through all Catholic school. I was a Catholic for a long time, and you know way more about it than I do. And I kind of laughed because back then, I was learning, but I'm still learning. I don't know. I don't even claim to know everything.
So am I.
Yeah,
I'm still learning.
It's a lot to learn, and it's like I feel like if anybody says they kind of have it all figured out, that's not even possible. I don't think it's like a constant learning lesson. But I remember him just making that comment, and I know Simon had kind of made a similar comment, like he would come as my sponsor to RCIA, and he was hearing things he'd never heard before. Mm-hmm. He was like, had one attitude coming in and then left it with a different attitude of like, oh, well, and these aren't his words, but he would say to the effect that, oh, I had no idea that's why we did that or whatever. So I do know that there's comments made a lot that are like, well, cradle Catholics kind of have, they've always done it. They kind of don't know why they're doing what they're doing. And the, converts know more because they're learning it. So I just wonder, have you ever heard of, not that they would require cradle Catholics to do an RCIA, but has there ever been talk of like a way to to force people to go? No.
Yeah, the church doesn't have a real good history when we try to force people to do things, even if they're good things.
No, I know.
There's a lot here. Let's see if we can break this open. So, by the way, Dana has said this all the time too. Every Catholic should avail themselves of the opportunity. Let's put it that way in the positive. Every Catholic should choose to want to grow in a mature understanding of the faith. Let's be honest, most Catholics, if they go through all sacraments of initiation, they're done with their formal formation at age 13, 14, maybe 15. And yet these are gifts that God's given us to make a difference in our life, to continue to transform us in the goodness that God created us to be. As it says in Scripture, to have life to the full, to have fulfillment in this world, and then eventually complete fulfillment in heaven. So what happens? Well, just traditionally, it's like you graduate, right? But life goes on, and we grow from life experience, And things that make sense to us when we're 7 or 15 don't exactly make sense to us with an adult perspective. So we don't grow in our faith. This is the primary reason, by the way, why a lot of Catholics fall away, because we do a real good job of explaining what we believe and how we do things all the way up to about age 15. But too often the why isn't there. And when you become mature, and even when you're a teen and you're beginning to become independent, what's the most important question? Well, why? Why do I have to go to church on Sunday? Why do I have to be confirmed? Why do we do these things that I've been doing since a child, and now I don't see any meaning for them, so why would I continue to do this? Those are excellent questions. We're sentient beings, right? God gives us intellect because he doesn't want robots. He wants us to discover the reason why. But absent the why, a lot of people just say, I'm not going to continue it. It has no meaning. And actually, from a certain perspective, I respect that more than people that just keep going through the motions and they don't even understand why.
Right.
That's RCIA.
Yeah.
We have people who are unbaptized. And so they're a tabula rasa, as they say, a philosophical term, right? A blank slate. It's all new to them. We have a lot of people who are baptized and then come for the sacraments of confirmation and Eucharist, like you did. Some are baptized Catholic. So the family tradition was to baptize. No one followed through with raising these people in the faith to understand why. What is this? What's this gift? How do I live it? How does it make a difference in my life? And then we have people coming from other faith traditions. And oftentimes they're very involved in their faith. And I love to have them come into RCI because they challenge the Catholics in there, and the credo Catholics, as you've defined that term before in previous episodes. Why? They ask all the why questions. This is different than our experience of Christianity. So why?
Right.
That's a mature adult relationship with Christ.
One of the things I think about a lot, where I'm joking, saying you got, to have a required thing for cradle Catholics to go through the RCIA. I don't necessarily mean that, but I do feel like there is so much to learn, whether you're just starting or you've been in this religion since you were a baby or whatever. I just want, because I love being Catholic so much, and I want everybody to love it, and I know that's a big thing to say, but I think it's something that I just love it so much. So do you feel like there's an increase in people that are wanting to become Catholic? Is there a decrease like in the past just few years? I know COVID's probably messed some things up a bit, but...
Again, this is our experience at our parish, but no, it continues to grow or at least be at a high level. By the way, Lori, when we had the COVID year where we had to do this all online, we were thinking, wow, how can we take this in-person engaging experience and make it work online? We never had more people come for sacraments than that year. We had 42 people receive sacraments that year. And a tribute to our team, we did a really good job of translating this into a virtual experience. It meant a few of us had to really come up to speed with all of the technological things that we needed to avail ourselves of. Diane and I did a retreat with our garage as the studio. And I don't want to give away one of the experiences on the retreat before you receive your sacraments, but it involves some real technological expertise, and we made it work. It was interesting talking to the team afterwards. They said, it was good, but it's just not the same as in person. And I said, the people who had this virtual experience has no idea.
Right. They had nothing to base it on.
But this is probably one of the best virtual experiences they've ever had.
Yeah.
Because we were still able, through Zoom, shout out to Zoom, to have these breakout groups and have these face sharing groups and still do things whole and in the small face sharing groups as well. But 42 people.
Well, it also shows that there was that need, like you said. It's
exactly.
Like, when you want to do something that's this important, you're going to, where there's a will, there's a way,
Right.
and you're going to do it and you're going to make the best out of it, because it's not really even about all that.
People were starving for that type
Yeah.
of an experience, whether it was religious or not, to stay connected to people.
Right.
But when you experienced it, I went back and looked. There were 14 people who received sacraments the year that you and Simon were there.
Oh.
We average 32 for the last 6 years since we went year round. Okay?
Yep.
Since we went year round. And we met people where they were at
Right.
and took care of their need immediately.
Right. Well, I love that. I love that, there was some adjustments made there. I feel like it's filling people's cup. It's like people are, depleted. They don't even know sometimes that they are depleted or how they're depleted. They just know they are. And when like I would have been so sad if I had to wait because I was so excited.
Right.
So I think that's awesome.
And it's word of mouth. We
Yeah.
don't advertise. I mean, we have it on our website for people who are curious, but it's easy to find the information, but we're not advertising. It's word of mouth. Quick story. Last year, we had a mother of, I think she had three kids, and she came to RCIA because she was asked to be the godmother for someone in her family had a child. And she came because she had to check that box, right, to be able to be a godparent. And within about 4 or 5 weeks, she figured out, whoa, this isn't just something I have to do. This is something I want to do. She discovered that it was feeding something inside of her that was a longing that she didn't know how to feed.
Right.
And so she ended up bringing her whole family. She had 2 brothers, a sister, a niece, and last year there was one table filled by this family.
Oh, that's
It
beautiful.
began with one person coming because they had to, and then figuring out, wow, this is amazing. I've discovered something. I want to share it with my family. And little by little, the whole family trickled in, including some friends. I think the total was 8 people from that one person coming originally.
Well, and also I feel like like I had said, when I, came into the Catholic Church, I had no knowledge of Catholicism. Even though I knew my dad had been Catholic, I really didn't know what that meant at all. And I remember going in and just wanting to be a part of this. I didn't know that I needed a certain thing filled up. So like I've said in another episode where, I wasn't raised in any religion, and then I became Christian, and that filled a part of me for the time I think it needed to fill something. It was like a precursor, I would say, going into the Catholic Church, and I knew it was going to be a process. I knew there was going to be a lot to it, but just God knew exactly that I needed that bigger investment is kind of how I look at it. Because I just still go back and laugh when, Simon asked if I wanted to go to this one church, and I said, absolutely not. I mean, it was just like an absolute flat no. But then when we went into that Catholic church in Canada, and he's like, well, this is a Catholic church, you want to go to the Catholic church? I'm like, yes. I mean, I didn't even know what that meant, but I knew it was a yes. Then having to go through this whole, or not having to go through it, but you do have to go through it. You don't just get to, like he said, walk in and be Catholic. I really wanted to take it all in and learn about it. And, so I understand when you're saying like that woman came in and it was like, she kind of went in with one vision of what it was going to be, but, you take it in, and then it just, I feel like if you're just open and willing to, that this is going to be a part of your lifestyle, that's the moment. And, and I've said in another episode, and I think you'll agree with me, that when you go in to the RCIA, you're not obligated to stay there. You're not forced to stay there. It's not like you start it and you have to finish it if you're not feeling right about it. I think it's a very conscious thing. I think, the team makes sure that you're very aware of what, kind of what you're getting yourself into. And it's not like getting yourself into something negative and bad. It's such a beautiful commitment, and you want to give it everything you have and to mean it. And it has to be a daily thing that you're going into. It's not, like I've said before, it's not something you turn off and on.
Right.
I'm also wondering what you think, what in your, like we'll say in the past, well, the whole time you've been doing it is a fair thing to say, I guess. Like, what's the reasons people want to become Catholic? Like, what do you find? Is it all over the board? Is it kind of a general consensus?
We'll be right back. rising anti-Semitism, new generations redefining how they connect with Jewish traditions, changing dynamics among Jews around the globe. Take a deep dive into these topics and more on Mosaic, Exploring Jewish Issues, the podcast brought to you by the Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County. Hear from the thought leaders, politicians, scholars, and artists at the forefront of Jewish life today. Subscribe to Mosaic, Exploring Jewish Issues, wherever you listen to podcasts.
So for those who were either baptized in another faith tradition, the Christian denomination, or unbaptized at all, why are they coming? That's a different question than the ones who are baptized Catholic and then come in as an adult. So the ones who don't have a Catholic experience at all, one word, longing. It's the basic longing that all human beings have. I believe it was St. Augustine who said it, but I know a lot of different people throughout the ages have said it. Human beings are born with a hole in their heart. It's a God-sized hole that can only be filled by God. And we try to fill it with all kinds of different things, and even different relationships. And even when those relationships are good, we still find out it comes up short. Right. Because the only way to fill that hole is to be true to the reason we come to be. Right. It's God loving us into existence. That love has to love. And that, for God, that's creating human beings to be in relationship with. And love has to be mutual. So that's why it's a relationship. So it's us discovering who we are, why we are, and then we can finally understand the only way we can be fulfilled is to be in this relationship with God, to choose to love God in return. What would be called true love. Not because we want something out of it. We all know relationships where everything that we do, somebody expects something in return, right? Right. But true love is always sacrificial. It's always putting the other first. It's just because I love this person, right? I'm not expecting to get something in return. And I'm fulfilled just by putting them first and loving them. That's what God does with us all the time. That's what we need to learn. That's our nature. And to let go of all the other things that distract us or keep us from living that completely. So it's that longing.
I think about when I became, when I was interested in becoming Catholic, I was definitely, again, longing for something. I kind of didn't know what. When I became Christian, it filled a certain hole that I didn't really know I needed to be filled, but that was a really specific time in my life, and I'm so grateful for that. I just, like I've said in past episodes, I like the richness and the tradition of the Catholic Church. I love that Christ started the church. I also love that no matter where you are in the world, we're all hearing the same gospel the same day, which I love. It's such a uniting factor that I really love. But I also know that there's a lot of misconceptions about the Catholic Church that really make me sad and bother me. I know personally, I have people in my own family that are, very attacking about me becoming Catholic. They don't look at it as a positive thing. They look at it that I'm in a cult, that I'm, being swayed to do this, which is so odd to me, because this was definitely a conscious thing that I did and I'm doing, and it brings me such happiness and joy, and it's such a positive thing. If my own family's doing that with me and seeing, that I think it's benefiting me and it's made a huge difference in my life. It's filled like the biggest hole. Nothing else could fill what Christ has filled in the church, and just me being a part of this beautiful religion. It makes me wonder if, other people are experiencing that too, where they have a longing, they're hesitant to join the Catholic Church because they've also heard misconceptions, or, I'll hear things sometimes and I'll think, well, that's just not true, or that's just not my experience. That's a better way to say it, because I'm not downplaying other people's experiences. But when I tell them, oh, I converted to Catholicism or I love it so much, and if they come back with a negative response, I always just say, well, that's just not my experience, and you should give it another try, or, you should look into it, because I just think we've come such a long way. And I do think maybe that's why people do, I don't want to say attack the Catholic Church, but maybe because it is so beautiful, and it is, I don't want to call it a threat, but maybe it is a threat to people that, it comes from Christ, and it's a beautiful, meaningful religion that I don't think there's another religion like it. And so,
you use the term convert, and that's a loaded term still. So for my parents, when my mother became Catholic, she converted from Lutheranism. Well, both churches were attacking each other and saying, basically, you're going to hell, right? So that wasn't a good time in Christianity. That is very divisive. But conversion meant leaving the tradition that you were raised in and embracing something else. That's threatening in a sense, right? To a family that still has meaning. Why would they leave this meaningful thing that we passed on through generations to something else? So it is a loaded term. And when we talk about conversion in the church now, we talk about the fact that we're all going through ongoing conversion. And what does that mean? To become more and more like Christ. That's conversion. It's being transformed from our self-centered identity to understanding that our life is not our own. It's a gift to be given to others the way that Christ gave his whole self. So that's an ongoing conversion. So we don't usually use that term too much in RCIA. You're converting to a Catholic Church. You're being fully initiated in the Catholic Church. What does that mean? Well, you're already baptized. Now you're receiving the sacrament of confirmation, another intimate experience of being drawn closer to Christ. Now you're receiving the Eucharist. You're receiving the sacraments of reconciliation, healing sacrament, a sacrament that nourishes the life of the Spirit within you, your spiritual life, just like your body needs to have physical nourishment, right? So is it different? Yeah. Is it a shift? Sure. But we're still a scripture-based relationship with our God, right? So I know a lot of the Christian denominations that people come from when they come to RCIA, everything's got to be scripture-based. Well, guess what? Everything in the church is scripture-based. The problem with the misunderstanding and the partial understanding and the flat-out false ideas, it's not just people from the outside looking at the church, it's people in the church themselves. Woefully, the average Catholic, not fully informed. They're not even sure of the why behind things or can fully explain completely a lot of the things that we believe, the things that we live. And I'm going to say there's two reasons for that. Too often, the church is not doing a good job of forming adults in the faith. But it's a two-way street also. If you want to grow in your relationship with Christ, if you want to live your faith in an active way, well, you're the one that needs to seek and find the answers. And if wherever you're trying to find them, you can't find them there, well, guess what? There's plenty of avenues in the church where you can get the information that you need, again, to satisfy your intellect so that it engages your heart.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So you had talked about being a part of RCIA. You're not forced to follow through with sacraments, that you're free to just come and learn and no one pressures you. So great example of that is someone who's actually on our team now and has a lot of technological expertise. So it's super helpful for me. So I don't have to be the only one doing the technology. But she came like you did with her husband because he's Catholic and wanted to be married in the church. And she was not Catholic, not baptized, and with experience in her life, she was not really sure she ever wanted to be Catholic, but knew it was important to him, so came. All right. By about the midway mark, she just was honest and said, I'm not going to continue right now. And there were things going on in her life that were personal, and it made sense. I understood. And we just told her, we're here. Anytime you want to come back, we're here. And we kept in contact. They had a baby girl. They got married and had a baby girl, and asked me to come and do the baptism, which was down in Orange County. So I drove down there, and beautiful baptism. Wanted to do it there because some elderly members of the family couldn't travel. And the moment I walked in, I knew something was different for her. And so at the end of the baptism, I walked over and I said, "Are you thinking about coming back to RCIA?" And she said, "Yes, I want to talk about that."
Aww.
So things had to happen in her life. Things in her past had to be worked out. Things in her present and for her future needed to get on track. She needed time to process. And then she was interested. Again, it wasn't like, I'm sure I want to be baptized, but I want to come back and finish. And it just happened to be about the midpoint mark. And so she came in, and within about 4 weeks, she goes, "I am all in," and wanted to receive these sacraments. She's a perfect person to have on the team because of that experience. And I can't connect with someone the way that she can, who comes with that similar experience, to be unbaptized, to have, we'll call it baggage, that has to be worked out before it makes sense of what God's drawing her into. And that she was doing it not for her husband, not for anyone else, but because she was doing it for herself.
Right.
Because this is where she was finally finding fulfillment. And her witness is powerful every time that she gets up and speaks.
That's beautiful. I there was a definite misconception when I wanted to become Catholic, where people in my family thought, I was being forced into doing this, that it was Simon's idea. And that was just so far from the truth. It was the complete opposite. It was like, I was drawn to it. I wanted to do it. He came along, to be my sponsor. And I just think, like you're saying about her, where she was, I wasn't hesitant, but she was a little hesitant because she had to be really sure. And I just think, when a person wants to take this on, I just think it's, really exciting to see, like, at what moment is that? I think my family was just confused as like, why is she doing this now? And this is a phase. This is this is a fad. She'll grow out of it.
Well, having listened to all your episodes and knowing your background, it might be difficult for them to even imagine the person that you were.
Right.
Somehow squaring up with this whole Catholic thing.
I know.
And if you add into that, and this is by experience working with families, when they're operating from whatever their perspective of the church is,
right?
If they can't imagine with their operative understanding wanting to ever be a part of that, they can't imagine somebody else either.
Right.
So
right.
It's understandable.
Right. I really appreciate you coming. I'm so grateful for this, and I know that I will have you back. And I know we've talked about even having you do a segment, because it would be nice to have the real factual things so that I don't muck it up and ruin everything. But anyway, I just appreciate you coming. I appreciate everybody listening. Please continue listening to my podcast and share it with your friends. And I'm now on Apple Podcasts. And so I would really appreciate a 5-star rating, and any reviews would be nice. Obviously positive reviews. I would appreciate that. And you can follow me on social media at Fresh Catholic. Facebook is Fresh Catholic. You can leave me messages. I also do speaking events. So that's another thing I'm getting into. So thank you again, Deacon Don. I appreciate you. I love you. And thank you, everybody. Love you. Bye.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for joining me today. Now go out and be a bright light in someone's life. And remember, be focused, be faithful, and be fresh. Fresh Catholic is recorded at Wonder Mouse Studios at the Castle at Pierpont in Ventura, California. My producer and engineer is Sarah Espel, and she could be yours too. Our podcast studio is available for rent. You can reach us at wondermouse.us, or freshcatholic.com.